the gentlelady from Wisconsin asked the question, what did we learn 2 weeks ago at the last hearing? I'll tell you what we learned. We learned Ex-Im Bank employee Johnny Gutierrez was indicted 36 hours before that hearing. He's now pled guilty. Last week he pled guilty. We learned that there are 31 open fraud investigations that both the Inspector General and the Department of Justice are looking into at the Export-Import Bank. And most importantly, what we learned from the Inspector General who sat in the same chair Mr. Hochberg is in today, he said there may be more indictments coming in the Gutierrez case and more indictments coming in those 31 open fraud investigations. That's what we learned. We also learned that the administration has failed to meaningfully comply with the requirements passed by Congress and signed into law as part of the Ex-Im Bank's 2012 reauthorization. In fact, the bank continues to resist reforms in that reauthorization. The focus of today's hearing is on the political nature of the bank's portfolio. While all the bank's sub-portfolios have significant problems, I personally am most concerned with the bank's support of renewable energy. The bank is mandated to dedicate 10% of its portfolio to support green energy exports. Here's the trouble. The entire market for U.S. exports of green energy technology is smaller than 10% of the Ex-Im's portfolio. This creates the pervasive incentive at the bank to rubber stamp green energy applications. Back in February 2011, the Ex-Im Bank authorized now bankrupt Solyndra $10 million in loan guarantees during the same time period in which the company negotiated and restructured its 1705 loan guarantee agreement with the Department of Energy. John Scott, former Vice President of Solyndra, touted the expedited manner in which the Ex-Im Bank granted Solyndra the loan guarantee, just 41 days. He said this was a, quote, fast due diligence process. Ex-Im also made loans to several other companies that benefited from the Department of Energy loan program, including First Solar, which this committee has investigated in 2012 and found to have significant problems. Green energy mandate also breeds cronyism and corruption. Earlier this year, the Washington Free Beacon reported that Ex-Im board member Diane Farrell left the bank to join Azure Power after helping it secure $16 million in export assistance to help the company purchase solar panels from First Solar. Wow, isn't that convenient? Recently, Michael Whalen was hired by the bank as the Vice President of Structured Finance. He comes from Solar Reserve, which had a junk bond rating, but still received $737 million from this administration's program that supported Solyndra and has been a candidate for Ex-Im financing. There's Tom Kiernan. He joined the bank's advisory committee earlier this year, and he's also chief executive of the American Wind Energy Association, which represents many companies that have received financing from the bank. The Ex-Im Bank's a perfect example of how big business and powerful special interests manipulate Washington to get their way. Senator Obama was exactly right in 2006 when he called the bank, quote, little more than a fund for corporate welfare, end quote. Every Republican presidential candidate is against it. Every outside fiscal conservative group wants this bank to go. The chairman of the relevant committees in Congress, Chairman Ryan at the Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Chaffetz of the Oversight Committee, Chairman Price of the Budget Committee, and Chairman Hensling of the Financial Services Committee support ending the bank. The House Majority Leader supports ending the bank. The House Majority Whip has also expressed opposition to the bank. And the best part of all this is all we need to do is something Congress is pretty good at. Nothing. Just don't reauthorize them. It'll naturally unwind. All the loans out there, the terms and conditions will be met. Some of them as far out as 18 years. You know, there's a story out today that the Speaker has said we should look at this issue and make something happen. And I can remember an issue around this Congress a few years back where important folks said we could never end earmarks. And then along came this bridge to nowhere. And suddenly Congress did what the American people wanted us to do and got rid of earmarks. I would say the same dynamics in play here. American people are fed up with corporate welfare, and the bridge to nowhere of corporate welfare is the Export-Import Bank. And it's time it goes, and again, all we have to do to end this is nothing. Just let it wind down in its natural course. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.